Hi, Ray Middleton here, System Broker of Fulfilling Lives, and welcome to a series of films about Ladder4Life. And that's a learning community that you're welcome to join, so you might want to grab a pen and paper and make some notes about the film. And what you're particularly looking for is some good habits or skills, helpful habits, and also some unhelpful habits where people get stuck. Because this is a learning community learning knowledge and skills around complex needs. So that's when people have combinations of mental health problems, addiction problems, and other kinds of problems like housing, homelessness, offending, those sorts of combinations of problems. And so Ladder4Life is based around a story which has a picture going with it. And so someone headed out on the journey of life from the family home, and they were heading up to the top of the hill. So we've got a picture to go with this. And that's the hopes for the future about how they'd like their life to get better. And sometimes on that journey of life that we're all on, we can get sidetracked into that dead end with the forest, the blue forest, and then sometimes have to backtrack a bit. And the rocks represent problems on the way as we're trying to kind of get on with our life, our journey. And if we are struggling to solve those problems, we can kind of get stuck in the quicksand of some unhelpful habits, so we can think about them as well. And so when we're stuck in the quicksand, we can have some real difficulties. And what we're going to do here in this learning community, Ladder4Life, is to grow a tree of knowledge and skills around complex needs by taking an open dialogue approach and applying some of those principles and talking to people who've got lived experience of complex needs and listening and valuing their point of view. So I suppose I'm wondering, inviting Terry and Donna now to join me just to have a conversation really about whether you feel the direction of someone's life, and the other area which is about what motivates us to keep going, whether you think that is relevant for people to think about when you've got complex needs and think about getting better. Any thoughts, either of you, just to start off the reflection?
For me, while entrenched in multiple complex needs, but at the start of my journey looking for a way out and looking for a way to get my life back on track, I had to focus on small goals, but also to try to get to the edge of that quicksand. I felt like I was just treading at periods, but then I would make more progress on certain occasions. You know, I might make 3 steps forward and take 2 steps back, but I was still making small progress. No?
Yeah. So on that idea of being on a journey, what I'm hearing you saying there is sometimes you felt you were getting out of the quicksand and making a few steps forward, but then sometimes you felt you make a few steps backwards.
Yeah. I think it was the learning process in how to forget what I had learned, the bad behaviour that I had learned, learning to forget that and learn new stuff. There was some of the stuff that I learned that never worked for me.
Yeah.
So ultimately I've walked into the forest, and but instead of coming back and going back into the quicksand, I've took like a little path onto the walk. Do you know what I mean?
So you've tried, if I'm listening, if I'm hearing you correctly, Terry, you find that some stuff you tried, it wasn't particularly, some stuff wasn't particularly that helpful, but you kind of realised you were in a bit of a sidetracked, you know, visually it's kind of gone up into that blue forest. But then you found out, rather than just going back into kind of the quicksand of being stuck in some old ways, am I right in thinking you found some stuff then that did help you to kind of progress onto a better direction in your life?
Yeah.
Rather than going...
Rather than seeing it as wasted, you know, I learned from it, and then I could, I could reflect on what I'd done, what never worked for me, but then I could go back and change to go in a different direction.
So So it sounds like something about reflecting seems quite important for you, about reflecting on whatever experience you've had, even if it wasn't a particularly positive one, but reflecting and learning from it, is that right?
Yeah.
And then being able to use that to kind of move forward?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really, really helpful. Have you anything comes to your mind, Donna, when you think about just this idea about having some direction in your life, or maybe getting a bit sidetracked or stuck?
I think for me, like throughout my journey, my ultimate goal was to get clean.
Mm.
I was stuck in that quicksand for like a lot of years. You know, I was homeless, I had nothing. And I just felt like I was just sort of like treading water for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then somebody had said to us, why don't you go and try and do this? So, you know, I tried to access treatment services, but because I had massive trust issues and stuff like that with people,
Yeah.
because my mental health was all over the place, I was isolated, I didn't trust anybody at all. So I sort of got sidetracked. I just felt like I kept hitting, you know, like brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. And one day, I just thought, right, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, so I looked back and thought, right, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Try something else, what else is out there? So that's what I did, I just kept going. And eventually, you know, I'm still on this pathway, you know, because ultimately I want to gain employment.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
just taking the scenic route.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, Donna. And it kind of what came to my mind listening to both Terry and Donna there was remembering kind of my journey as well. And there's a bit of a common theme crops up, which is I also tried a lot of things when I was experiencing complex needs and some say the combination of serious mental health problems and addiction to alcohol and drugs. Is I tried a lot of things that actually didn't work, but for some reason I didn't give up, which it came out of both of your sharing there different things. So there's something about persevering that comes to mind and not letting those experiences of, because they were quite disappointing when I tried something. Sometimes I tried voluntary work and it didn't work out, for example, when I'd been unemployed for a number of years. But there was something that helped me to keep going, and for you both as well, there's something about not giving up and trying something new. I wonder what it is about helped us to be hopeful about carrying on with the journey and trying again.
From my perspective, I think it was speaking to people who had that lived experience before me, who had come out the other side, but also had lived the same type of life that I lived, and they've turned it around, and inspiring, I would say, would be the word that I would use. They were inspiring to me.
So there's something about other people inspiring you because they'd had a similar kind of difficulties and come through them on their journey was progressing and they'd somehow changed. Is that right? So physically meeting people, was it about physically meeting people or seeing them in films, or in terms of being inspired by people?
I think it was more the physically seeing people that I knew who were entrenched in the same type of lifestyle as what I was, and I had used with these people, and I then seen these people clean and in recovery from the same things I suffered from, mental health, homelessness, and substance misuse and reoffending,
So there's something really important to capture there about the role modelling of people in recovery is an inspiration. I'm just wondering, because everyone's a unique individual and we're all different as well as having some similarities, Donna, can you think of anything about this idea about what helps you to be hopeful and carry on?
What did it with me was having me children, and I thought, if I don't do something now, I'm not going to be here to see my kids grow up and stuff like that. And I was absolutely terrified, think, God, where do I go? Who do I turn to? And it's hard to ask for help when you don't trust anybody and stuff like that. And
It is, isn't it? And so it sounds that was a big motivation for you about wanting to be there and to be with your children, and the fear of it not being around. But also it's important to capture that kind of conflict that you're sharing. There's if it's hard to trust people and you need some help, as we all need help with different things in life, there's a tension there about getting on with the journey of your life. Might involve getting help, but then if it's hard to trust people, how do you trust people to help you with your journey, get unstuck out of the quicksand, wherever you're stuck in, and get onto a path? So there is a challenge there about working out how to trust people.
I think, you know, like, I eventually met this lady and she was absolutely fantastic, you know. She totally understood like where I was coming from. She'd been there herself, so it was like about, you know, like speaking to someone with lived experience, you know. And if it wasn't for this lady, I don't think I would have sorted my life out, to be honest with you.
Right.
And so it was just like she inspired us, and you know, even like we're still in touch now, and you know, even now she still inspires us.
So that's great to hear. And so there's something about the inspiration of people who've got into recovery, but there's also this important point that you've brought into as we've opened up a bit of a dialogue about journeying, is we need some trust in those other people as well. I mean, what do you think about this idea about trust, Terry? Does that help, or does that come to mind when you think about people inspiring you?
Again, touching on the same as what Donna said, I had a lot of trust issues because of the way that I've been brought up in my life, and my actions made me very cynical, you know, of both life and people. And I think when, and Donna's also said this, when someone gave me time and said, well, they taught me that it was okay to, I won't say fail because I don't fail, I learn, but they taught me that if I don't do something right, it's not wrong. It's just a learning curve.
Yeah.
But they've also taught me things that have stopped them in the past, which then I don't have to replicate for it to stop me. I know, right, it stopped that person doing that, so, well, I don't do that then, because if it stopped them, there's a good chance it will stop me.
That
so
makes sense,
I try to take other people's advice today who have been where I've been, because in the past I never took any advice.
So there's something there about being on that journey, about being able to shift a bit, to trust people a bit more than in the past, allows you to take some advice from other people, which could be helpful. But there's also something just to capture, I'm hearing you saying there, about thinking, instead of thinking about some experiences as a failure, thinking about them as a learning curve really freed you up to be able to kind of see them in a different light and think, well, I've learned something from this experience. Have I heard you right there, Terry, about the learning curve point?
Definitely. And it is a learning curve. That the things that I've heard off of those people, then I can then pass on to people that I'm working with, who are maybe going through some of the same issues that I went through, while I was being given direction by other individuals.
We're going to try and keep this fairly short, so we might draw it to a close, but I've really appreciated the conversation here because it changed me really, and it's made me think about a few different things. So partly what comes to mind, it seems it's helpful to think about being on a journey in life, and in that there's some common themes that have come out about actually being inspired by other people who've got into recovery. Although they were different people for all three of us, that was an important kind of common theme in our journey. And then we, on our journey, can also be inspirational to other people. Trust is an issue. So having to trust people that we can learn from is a challenge, but it's possible. And then once we experience getting help from other people and getting on out of being stuck in our various ways and getting on the journey of recovery, and that means different things for different people. But then there's the idea that we can learn, be on a learning curve and learn from our own experiences, but we can also learn from other people. That seemed to be helpful. If I held in mind kind of our conversation now, I really kind of valued what you both shared, and I'd think, well, actually, I could remember that I could be an inspiration to other people, but also I like the idea about the learning curve from Terry, about thinking about the experiences I've had can be a learning curve, but also from Donna, I appreciate the idea about trust, and that actually I need to kind of be sensitive to think about trust might be a difficult issue for people, and that might need to kind of build up slowly and grow and be nurtured. As in terms of relationship, trust is really important. Are there any kind of thoughts just before we end, either of you want to share just about the conversation we've just had about life being like a journey in terms of motivation and direction, getting stuck or getting sidetracked or being on track? Any final thoughts?
I think from me, for it, definitely is having an aim for where you want to be, but keeping it small, manageable and realistic goals, so that you don't put that pressure on yourself for failure at the start of a journey that's going to be a hard journey.
Any thoughts, Donna, from yourself?
I think what I want to say is, don't beat yourself up if, like you're taking like 5 steps forward and then 3 steps back. It's all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great. And that journey metaphor does help with that, because you think, well, maybe I've just gone back a few steps, but I could still go forward, or maybe I've got sidetracked, but actually I can still find a way through. So thanks everyone for today, and we'll draw it to a close there, but do tune into the other films where we open up a dialogue about other bits of this Ladder for Life framework. So thanks everyone.
Thank you, Ray.
So, thanks for listening. We learned an awful lot there from Terry and Donna, and we showed that it's pretty straightforward to open up a dialogue around the motivation and direction in life, and to have a think about what are the helpful habits or skills that can help on that journey, and what are the unhelpful habits that we can get stuck in the quicksand. And that was just for about 18-19 minutes. So if you'd like to join the community, a learning community around complex needs, Ladder for Life, do, and we'd be really interested if you want to post a comment in response to what you've heard, any thoughts about the direction and motivation in life. That would be great, and we can just build a community of people, because nobody knows everything, but people know partly what the solutions are, and so by forming a community we can work together towards a better future for people with complex needs, and more pathways to recovery by co-producing these pathways together and listening to each other. So thank you.